Andrei and Boryan. I hope sincerely that the human bingo that you played somehow broke the ice between you and you feel prepared for the first panel. I also hope that you had enough time to rest from the yesterday's traveling, especially since most of you traveled more than 10 hours to get here. But I hope that since you're here, you're all ready to start with the first panel. So I would like to officially welcome you to the first panel, From Waiting Room to Action Room, Resetting the EU Integration Process for the Region. This year we decided that when we were doing the program, we said that for 22 years, all we talk about is the EU integration, the European values, the position of young people in these processes. But when we open the news from all of our countries, and when we open the statistics and the numbers in the countries, we see that the young people are somehow starting to feel a bit uncertain and with growing skepticism, with starting to have disbelief in the processes, but also in the actors who are guiding these processes. Most of the young people believe that the politicians or let's say the decision makers or the people responsible for these European integration processes are not actually doing the things successfully, and they are leading these processes in some kind of a loop of always passively waiting or being, let's say, stuck in the waiting room. And on the other side, we see that our generation, the young people, are actually tired of being in the waiting room and feeling the energy and let's say the motivation to get in the action room and to do something that will improve these processes. But none of this wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the right people to support us. Because as young people, it is wanting to have motivation and inspiration to do something. But if someone doesn't, I will not say allow, but if we don't have the right room and the space on the table of these processes, things are more difficult to achieve. Therefore, we will start with the first distinguished guest speakers of our panel, Her Excellency Petra Drexler. She is an ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to North Macedonia, and I would take this opportunity to say a great supporter of the young people, because you're always supporting us on our youth events, and we believe that as a German ambassador with your agenda, it is, let's say, a bit difficult to come all the way to Kruševo on an international youth conference, but we are very grateful and happy that you are here. And I would like to welcome you on the conference and to welcome you to share your opening remarks. And thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Nina. First of all, I think I have to apologize because actually you're right. It took me 3 hours to get here, but only 3 hours. And I listened carefully, and you said that some of you came a much longer way with 10 hours. So there are people here who put an even greater effort, which is a great start to know that there's so much interest to engage in a discussion. And I also want to make clear that now I'm here on stage, but I also came here to listen, and I think there will be plenty of room for you to share your experience, expectations, ideas, and concepts. As Nina mentioned, I've worked as the ambassador of Germany in North Macedonia for the last 2.5 years. And it won't be a surprise for you that my mandate is basically focused on the EU integration process of North Macedonia and the Western Balkans. Germany has been very supportive of the EU enlargement with particular view on the Western Balkans. But what does that mean in practice? When I read the program for today, I was smiling a little bit because I've heard this concept of being in a waiting room so often. And I understand where it comes from, because I mean, you can't discuss the facts, right? I mean, it's 20 years that this country got the candidate status, the negotiations, the opening of chapters to negotiate still to come. So I understand where the frustration comes from. At the same time, I'm always a little bit hesitant to accept this concept of a waiting room. What's a waiting room? I mean, for me, it creates images of going to see a doctor sitting there in a room where you are encouraged to switch off your mobile phone, not to talk, to be inactive, to wait for something to happen that will heal you out of a sudden. And I find that a bit of a difficult concept for an EU integration process. For sure, over the last 20 years, a lot of things have happened in North Macedonia, in neighboring countries, also in EU member states itself. And if I look at 2025 only, there is one very significant date for me, and this is 6th of March 2025. It's not a date that creates an image with many people like 11th of September does, where everybody remembers where she or he was. 6th of March 2025, the European Payment Council admitted North Macedonia to the SEPA geographical area. SEPA is the single European payment area. And it sounds very, very technical, but I think this is something that will be a life-changing experience for many people, including me. I live as a German citizen in Skopje. I receive my salary on a German bank account. I make payments here. Whenever I do a cross-border transfer, I pay huge fees, like everybody else does who tries to do cross-border financial transactions that go beyond this SEPA area. And since we are German, we love statistics, we love to look into things a little bit more in detail, and although our economy has seen better times, I think there's still very strong economic expertise in Germany. So what we did is we asked the German economic team, a team of experts, to look into the concrete effects that decision will have for North Macedonia. And I speak of North Macedonia now because I'm an ambassador here, but it's also true for other countries in the region. Albania will join, Montenegro will join, and it's not a decision that is taken by one side or the other, by European member states, the European Commission, or this agency that is responsible. It requires a strong effort from the country that applies. It requires the preparations in legislation, and then the council can take such a decision. So I had a look when I came here during these 3 hours into the study that our experts prepared, and I can tell you that in 2024 the foreign trade payments between North Macedonia and SEPA countries were amounted to 15.6 billion euros. If, of course, I mean, it's a complicated statistical measurement, what you count and what you don't. I will spare you all the details. The costs for these transfers amounted to 0.41%. With the introduction of SEPA, it is likely to decrease to 0.04%. That's savings of 0.38%. It's that's still very abstract now. If you calculate that in real money, it amounts to more than 60 million annually. And this is counted based on the remittances and the transfers basically of bigger companies. And bigger companies who make bigger payments, of course, also get a better rate for their transfers. Yesterday I talked to a young woman who is an interpreter and works as a freelancer, and she told me that when she does interpretation for somebody from France, from Germany, from any EU country for a day or so, and she charges 100 euros, she would have to pay 20 euros in fees just for this bank transfer. And after the SEPA will kick in, that will be reduced to 2 euros. And I think that gives you an idea how big that change will be and how much it will help young entrepreneurs, people who start a business to enter the market and to stay there. And it's something that was invented to integrate EU member states into a single market. So that's what we talk about when we talk about gradual integration, for example. And this gradual integration has happened. I think there are plenty of other examples. Erasmus Plus, for example. It's a program that was invented by Europe for Europe. The Western Balkans benefits from Erasmus Plus. And sometimes when I engage in a discussion about gradual integration, people come up with ideas, oh, and it would be nice to be part of these Erasmus scholarship programs. And I think, well, you already are. So I think there's also, there's a challenge in awareness, and there's a challenge in the narrative. So I personally think what would really help in the integration process would be to reclaim the narrative and to change the narrative and look into what really happens. And I don't deny that there is always reason for frustration. But you make your choice what you focus on.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for your speech. I would like to say that we are on the same line with you, that we must reclaim the narrative, but also this is the focus of the whole conference. This conference has in the program 4 R's, or let's say reroute, reshape, rebuild, reform. So we believe that we need to reset the things in order to improve the situation. So thank you. And before we move on with our next speakers, I would just like to say something that I missed in my introduction. So this panel, we decided to change the things a bit and not to go in the classic panel style, but also to include, instead of a Q&A session, to include something that is called hot seat, which I am sitting on right now. It is this red seat that after our dear panelists, we would invite you to join us on the stage, and you will have the opportunity to maybe share some remarks or comments on the previous speeches, but also to set a question to our distinguished guests. So make sure you follow the discussion and then find how can you get involved as well. So moving on to our next guest, I would like to invite Ms. Teodora Vunidi, and I would introduce you as a co-founder of NGO Balkan Youth Cooperation, but I would invite you to share more about yourself and also to say as a person who is coming from Greece, it's a European country, what is your perspective on the situation? And also maybe share how is the importance to get people involved, to get the young people involved in the EU integration processes, but also what are the costs of the prolonged waiting room? Please welcome.
Hello, everyone. So, my name is Theodora Vounidi, yes. I'm the co-founder of Balkan Youth Cooperation, an NGO established in Greece back in 2022. But I'm also a Balkaniologist, so I'm studying Balkans for my whole adult life. From my when I began my studies in my bachelor in 2016, the initial European excitement across the Balkans was already fading. Official reports back then spoke of gaps and delays. Still now they are speaking about them. But a more, let's say, a closer look to how people feel and what people live in the Balkans pointed a different picture. So distrust over postponed integration, skepticism about the fair application of the Copenhagen criteria, of course, and most strictly, resignation. So the result of all of that, we are experiencing still today, ongoing alliances with fragile democracies, brain drain, youth unemployment, and the most important, loss of faith in the future. That's the point when I realized back then what the reports don't say, but what European Union should fear the most, the waiting room syndrome. And I start thinking, what does it feel for a whole generation to feel like their future depends on endless postponed promises? So the price of waiting is steep. Instead of process, we see stagnation. Youth unemployment in the Western Balkans remains alarmingly high, often exceed 30%, and in Kosovo, nearly 50% sometimes of young people are out of work. NEET rates, those not in education, employment, or training, hover around 24%. Compared to just about 11% the rest of Europe, across Europe. And long-term unemployment affects around 2/3 of young people in our countries, in North Macedonia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Kosovo. When the progress doesn't arrive, young people who lived in the age of information start seeking the European dream elsewhere, and those who remain gradually lost faith in European perspective. We can't change the politics, but we can change the role of youth. I will try to give you an example from my experience with my organization. So the past year, we trained the local councils of Youth Climate Diplomacy Forum in C, which established youth councils, national councils in almost every of the Balkan states, include Cyprus and Turkey. So what we saw during this advocacy and trainings was that we have in front of us people full of ideas, very well educated, very well informed, especially they had focus on EU green agenda, let's say, but they didn't know how to start. After the training, a lot of them launched awareness campaign in public squares regarding EU climate goals. Others hosted university events on European Green Deals. Others organized online roundtables with local stakeholders to submit their comments in public consultation. I will speak about that later because it's very important. All this directly engaging with the kind of participatory democracy EU stands for. So these small, low-cost or even no-cost actions show to the high politics that the change, the European values, the European perspective can start from the ground, because we will start the way we are seeing the things first, and then they will follow us in this procedure. So how do we close the gap between, let's say, policy frameworks and tangible results? That's a bit difficult, but we start seeing the EU accession process not just as laws on papers, but the true European dream is to build a culture of participation, cooperation, accountability, and trust. And this is where we already, and we can more, make the difference. So, of course, first the institutions, especially the local ones for me, must see youth not just as beneficiaries, but as partners in implementing the Copenhagen criteria and basis. But also we must participating youth councils, local assemblies where young people can actively participate in decision making, because these councils directly reflect, as I said before, the EU expectation for inclusive governance, and also prepare the ground for a lot of the chapters of the EU process, and also, for me, a really important pressure to improve the public consultation. In my research on how what they say in the parliaments in the Western Balkans, I understood that in a lot of Western Balkan 6 countries, we don't have digitalized public consultation, which exclude young people, but also the whole civil society. Yet the EU consistently highlights open, transparent, and digitalized consultation as a benchmark of readiness, of course. So by creating digital platforms, young people who, as I said before, from my experience, I have seen that they are very well educated, they could submit their research-based realistic proposals, contributing directly to the reforms EU asks for. As you all know, from my experience in European Parliament, you know that all the situations happened in the parliament are open and transparent, and you can show them everything digitalized. We are in the digital era, so I think this is one of the most important, because this is how we bridge the policy and practice, by ensuring that youth engagement is not symbolic, but more like a driving force, let's say, for meeting the integration benchmark on the ground. So I will sum up with that. EU enlargement process must be viewed not as a charity, but as a two-way investment. The Balkans need the EU, but also the EU needs the Balkans. We are EU's external frontier, vital for security and resilience of the Union. We are key partners in green transition, connectivity, and also democratic stability. But this demands an identity shifting. We must stop being perceived only as candidate countries, but become co-shapers of our shared future. I will close with that. This can happen only if young people have voice, access, and opportunity in the decision-making. We can transform, thus, the waiting room into the giant room of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Theodora. I would like to stress out that it is very important. It is very important for our countries to actually build a culture of democratic reforms, transparency and openness, but most importantly, regional cooperation. I personally believe that the young people are the best people to start with this thing. So thank you very much for your remarks. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Alan Gudala, He is a program officer at RAICO local branch office in Sarajevo, and also a master of international relations and diplomacy. As a person coming from Bosnia and a person working at the regional youth cooperation offices, I would like to say that you are living and breathing the regional youth cooperation. So maybe you can share with us why is this so important, and why is youth advocacy in the enlargement process the most important component. Please welcome.
Well, first of all, good morning. It's my pleasure to be here, and also I'm very happy to see familiar faces, which is also a bit scary, which means the circle is getting smaller. So maybe it's time to act in that way as well.
Open the circle.
Yeah, I think the first thing we have to understand, many people see regional cooperation or different regional organizations as a form of gradual integration, which is partially probably true, but at the same time, we have to understand the limits of regional cooperation, because regional organizations do not have a mandate to push us into, most regional organizations do not have a mandate to push us into the EU, but they rather serve as a place, as a framework for us to act. And in that sense, Regional Youth Cooperation Office serves as a platform for youth to actually say and offer ideas, and on the other hand, RAC will be here to offer a place for dialogue. Just a few things to remind you. The key topics, the frame that we work with is related to intercultural dialogue, peace building, and reconciliation. These are the areas that are quite relevant for all the Western Balkans 6, particularly for Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, and Serbia. For example, one of the key priorities for Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's actually priority number 5, is actually to deal with reconciliation before we move to the next stage. So you see there is a direct link between what this particular regional organization wants to do and what the EU expects from us. So that is one example. The other example is, for example, transport community. Again, another organization that is not here to push us into the EU directly, but again, it serves as a place to push for reforms that are needed for us to get closer to the European Union. So when it comes to youth, for example, youth here in the Western Balkans 6, they do see their European identity through these organizations. For example, the Shared Future publication that we have been working on since 2021 clearly finds that youth do see not only a regional identity, but also their European identity. So the question is here, what is more important for you, or if there is a clash between the two? I do believe there should be no clash between the two. So it's for us to understand what is our priority in that sense. And also, to close with these opening remarks before I move to the issues that I really want to highlight the conclusions from the latest youth forum that we just organized in Pristina 10 days ago, and I'm really happy to see some of you were there, also highlight the fact there is an urge for the region to push toward the EU integration process. Or maybe I would rather highlight negotiation before. I see this integration thing as something that is maybe somewhere in the clouds still. It's happening, but I think we should prepare ourselves for the negotiations. I think that's the real obstacle. And in that sense, there's some of the key issues I would like to highlight directly linked to negotiations where we must include youth in different areas. For example, we often talk about changes in the region when it comes to governments, countries, demographics, and so on, and economies, of course. But the EU is changing rapidly. The region is not changing rapidly. I see this growing gap between the reality on the ground in the Western Balkans and what is happening in the EU. I understand it's easy to blame the EU for wrongdoings or not doing maybe enough. I will be the one who will say that. But on the other hand, priorities are changing if you are not in the room, or if you are not maybe willing to be in the room. So it's time to question the priorities of our political parties across the region. Like, do they really want to move toward the European Union? It's easy to say, but it's hard to do. So the EU is changing rapidly, and there is focus on maybe on something else. And I don't think we should blame the EU, but rather to understand why the focus is somewhere else. And the answer lays here in the region for that. So that's the first thing. The second thing I find quite concerning I spent many years working with youth in formal education and informal education, and it's a bit worrying to see exclusion of academia when it comes to integration process. I understand maybe we have this natural need to be interested in the EU integration process if you study social sciences, political science, and so on. But the EU integration actually is relevant for faculties of medicine, technical faculties, and so on. So we don't have bodies, informal bodies in these faculties or academia in general that actually is willing to talk about EU integration process and the relevance of EU integration process for the entire academia. So that's one of the issues I see really, I find it quite concerning. But then at the level of our civil society, there are maybe two issues, particularly those civil society organizations dealing with youth issues. We do focus on activists and marginalized groups, and it should be like that. This should stay on the ground. But for example, my cousin, he's a truck driver. He's 26. He has no interest to sit here, to be here. He doesn't know anything about the EU integration process, and he doesn't want to know. He is not interested to join civil society organizations. But he spends 12 hours each time when he crosses the border between Bosnia and Herzegovina and the EU, I mean Croatia. He sees the benefits of the EU integration on the ground very rationally, because he spends 12 hours instead of crossing the border just like that. So he understands, without understanding the need why we have to join the EU and why we have to push toward the EU integration. That's the moment when we go back to these regional organizations that I mentioned, transport community, and so on. For him, that's quite relevant. And he's just one example, because you have cousins like that, and this is the majority of our youth population. How do we approach them when it comes to EU integration process? How do we explain them integration process and the relevance? It's maybe easy for us to talk about it, to understand all the mechanisms that we have, thanks to the European Union, but there is the need to push toward those who do not have interest to work on these particular topics. That's for example, quite concerning, because these are the people that will see the benefits of the EU integration process. And for example, there is another element that we have to understand, which goes back to the regional organizations. There is no legal framework because of complex relations in the region, and of course there is no expectation that countries in the region will develop legal framework to push toward the EU integration process. So it is important for us to understand the limits of regional organizations when it comes to EU integration process. But when it comes to youth representation, why representation is important. For example, if you are not around the table, as we mentioned before, the youth will find another table, and that's a concerning thing for the European Union. I'm happy that you mentioned yesterday, colleague from RCC, some of the surveys that will be presented quite soon, but also we have seen different surveys across the region, particularly in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For the first time, support for the EU, for us to join the EU, is under 50% in one entity, Republika Srpska in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but on general, it's declining. The support among youth is declining. Why is this problematic? I mean, your ideas or how you perceive European Union changes on a daily basis. Today, maybe I hate it, but tomorrow I'll be like, let's do it. But the decline of support can be used as a political tool by political parties to say, listen, there is no support on the ground for us to join the European Union. Why should we bother? Why should we push for that? That's the moment where you need youth to sit around the table and to say, listen, there is a need for include us. Across the region, that's not the fact. I think there are some exceptions, like Macedonian Sobrania. I believe there is a youth body, if I'm not wrong, where youth MPs could actually address these concerns. But at the regional level, I think this is the moment where you, activists, should push for that. So maybe there are some practical proposals at the level, for example, of academia. I think we need informal bodies to actually push for the EU integration at level of faculties. I think that's quite important. RICO is doing a great job working with high schools across the region, but there is one RICO, but there is no another RICO. So that's the moment where we actually we have to together try to involve more youth, those youth like my cousin that I mentioned. then there's a moment where we actually have to open dialogue with civil society organizations to actually set up the priorities when it comes to EU integration process. Because we talk about EU integration process, but do we have capacities actually to deal with it? And there's some other elements that are quite concerning as well, but that could change. I think that's possible. For example, we have capacities, particularly civil society organizations, to deal with the fundamentals, cluster, particularly the chapter 23. But I'm quite concerned about the chapter 19, which deals actually with employment, particularly youth not in employment, education and training, which takes me back to the youth I mentioned that is not excluded, that is excluded, but forms the majority of population of youth in the region. Then there was a chapter 26, which deals directly with education and culture. There is expertise on the ground, but I don't think there is a systematic support in the region or coordination in the region when it comes to that. And finally, chapter 27, I'm happy that some of you already mentioned, this is related to environment and climate change. This will be the most expensive chapter to close, to open and to close, and it will be the youth, those who will have expertise actually to work directly on negotiations when it comes to that. And I have to mention political parties here as well. I understand that many political parties, if not most, do have youth wings, and they do they approach different topics related to particular political parties when it comes to youth. But on the other hand, these young representatives, decision makers, will be sitting in parliaments across the region tomorrow. I'm not quite sure there is a clear strategy from many political parties to deal with negotiations. So I think at the level of political parties, we have to actually understand and maybe build capacities of youth wings to deal with these particular topics and chapters that I mentioned. There are other chapters, but I will not bother you with it, but I think these are the most relevant for the youth where you could be involved. So that will be happening in the next 10, 15 years, because the real integration will happen after that. So the question on the ground is how to include those who actually present 80 or 90% of us, because in the room we do represent youth. Maybe I'm a bit older, I'm 36, so maybe I'm a bit excluded, but I think at the regional level we have to take into consideration the need of those youth, because they will see the benefits of EU integration process. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to stress out what you said. If youth are not on the table, then youth will find another table. And I think that this is we need to work on this more, because connected with the growth of the Euroscepticism, we think this is very dangerous for our region if youth find another table. And this is also connected with the gap between the growth in the European Union and the lack of growth in our countries. So I believe that this is also connected with the building of the capacities of the young people. But I would say not only between the youth political wings, but also with the other structures where the young people are participating and are very active. So thank you very much for your remarks. And now I would like to proceed with Mr. Gabriel Penchev. He is an assistant project coordinator at the Atlantic Club of Bulgaria. I would like to welcome you to share let's say, the perspective of the Bulgarian young people, but also how did the countries in our Balkan change the narrative and started the processes one by one, but also why is it important to cooperate between each other and maybe learn from one another. Please welcome.
Thank you. Your Excellency, dear colleagues, dear friend, zdravo, zdravejte, yes, guten morgen. I'm sorry if I skip some Bali-born language. It's a great honor to me to speak, and I was accept the invitation to be a speaker here. And I was preparing for the conference. I was thinking, okay, what I'm gonna say? I mean, I'm nobody for the audience. But the good thing is that I had the opportunity to speak with people who was involved in the Bulgarian EU-Atlantic, this time the Atlantic integration is not important, but especially about the EU integration. What I learned from them, that the Euro integration is not given, it's earned. If I need to give an example, Slovenia entered in 2004, Bulgaria and Romania entered in 2007, Greece entered in 1985, as I remember, yes. Croatia also joined in 2014. Because we built a lot of consensus, we made painful reforms, and somehow we managed it. But this is an example for the whole country in the Western Balkans. They can take our example. But what about the young people? For that, I asked the chairman of the Atlantic Club that I work, Solomon Pass. He was our foreign minister from 2001-2005, and he signed the European in the NATO treaty for the Bulgaria. I asked him, Mr. Pasi, I'm gonna go in Krushevo in some days to speak about the topic from the waiting room to the action room about the EU integration on the Western Balkans. What am I supposed to need to say? I mean, I'm not sure if I can give a strong consensus for these people. He told me, okay, what do you believe? Is it easier or, I don't know, difficult from before? And I said, probably it's difficult because the time's changing and a lot of the interruptions are totally different. He said, okay, you're right, but at the same time you're not right, because now it's easier from ever, because you can use your voices, you can be apart from the civic work, from not only on the elections, you can be to network, because here we are people from the whole Balkans. And the most important is that we need to be loud. We need to be loud for our governments, because otherwise they're not gonna pay attention for us. I also spoke with Ambassador Bistra Benishel from our board from the Atlantic Club. She told me that if I need to give advices to the people from that conference, I need to give advice like don't let the corruption and the nationalism at our country to destroy your future. Also demand progress reports from your country, because it's so important to be informed what's going to happen in your country. And also tell your story to Europe, because don't wait for Brussels to discover you. We need to go there to organize the dialogues and to make decisions together. I want to be short, so I want to further the discussion after that on the hot chair. And for the finish, I'm going to say that if we move from the waiting room to the acting room, if we dare to lead it, so we can create a Balkan that's like a region where the border were just lines on the map, not a barrier to cooperation. And let's not just wait for the Europe, let's build Europe together. Thank you very much that you're having me, and I'm glad I'm going to have a question from you later.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel. Before, when we talked before the panel, you mentioned that the Atlantic Club of Bulgaria was also very much involved in the integration processes. So maybe you can share with us something more about this, because most of the young people are not very much in these discussions, and they do not know what is happening inside. So maybe you can share something more about this, and also do you believe, and why do you believe it's important to also include young people in this process? Because for Bulgaria it was a successful story, so maybe you can share some positive example for the other countries.
If I need to be honest, I'm gonna go from back. If I need to be honest, if I see the youth sector in Bulgaria, I believe it's, and I'm glad that it's pretty good, because we are some kind of evolve from the government's work. Because from time to time they ask, what do you want? Do you have ideas to cooperate with us? How we believe that we're gonna develop in our youth politics? If I need to speak about the Atlantic Club of Bulgaria, The board of that NGO, that is Euro-Atlantic, the chairman was the first person in Bulgaria after the Soviet time that we had until 1988, who was entering the National Assembly and said, we need to integrate it with NATO in the European Union. After that, a lot of people from his party following him, and we start the process in 1992. We had some problem because the Balkans weren't a peaceful place, this was for sure. There is a lot of civil conflict, especially in Bulgaria. If I need to be honest, the mafia took the country, especially in about the 19 years. But we managed to reform the country and to take that kind of reform that's gonna enter us in the European Union, also about the Romania on that time. We signed the contract to 2005. After that we entered in 2007. We had the European presidency on 2018, and on that place we share our opinion with the whole European Union that Bulgaria wants to be something like a bridge between the Western Balkans and the European Union, so we want to integrate that country from that region. Fortunately, the last years a lot of events happen, and most of the country doesn't trust in you anymore, but we still believe that we can manage it together.
Thank you very much. And now, I will stand up from this chair and leave it blank. Okay. And now I would like to invite anyone who would like to say something, give a comment from the audience, or maybe you have a question that you would like to ask our speakers, to join the stage and please share your remarks. Does anyone want to join us? Oh, you are very passive this morning. Come on. Okay, Andre. Oh, you have a mic. Okay.
Yes. Hello to everyone once again. My name is Andre. I'm a member of the YAC team, and also because of my comment, etc., I would like just to say that my background is in civil engineering, so I'm not involved in terms of education, like in the political science, etc. So everything that I know about EU integration, etc., comes when I came to this conference 2019, when I in Khrushchev also. Here, when I started to learn some new things about the EU integration, I could say that I understand something when it comes to integration. I just want to make a comment regarding what's happening currently in the country. I didn't try to create something to be, let's say, inspirational, etc., but I'm just saying what comes to my mind and etc., because I also represent a whole another group of target group, which are also, for example, students from the technical faculties who are not involved in general. So I would start from that. When it comes to the education in, now I'm talking for North Macedonia, but I believe it was similar in the other Western Balkans countries. I believe that the EU integration, let's say the European citizenship spirit, we should start to building it even from the earliest age. Because what we know about EU integration, that is process that is happening above us, and it's only connected with, let's say, the change of the name or doing some constitutional changes. And it's not much, when we are not seeing the broader picture that comes with the EU integration process, which is also adopting the EU legislation and making our legislation to come to the European. And also the corruption is also something that is part of the EU integration. The environment is also something that is part of the EU integration. The rule of law is something that is also part of the EU integration. The connectivity and etc., all of this stuff are also part of the EU integration process. And I believe that raising this awareness among the people will also grow up the EU positivity, which is definitely big among the young people, but unfortunately there is shifting the narratives currently in the public, also by the government, also by the media, etc. So there is a huge also polarization happening, I believe, in all of our countries currently. I mean, also Europe, but I also think the Western Balkans facing this problem with the polarization, dividing in the societies, which is also promoting some kind of narrative, which is taking us actually back from the reality, because we live in one reality and we are having another reality in the media, which is everything like is positive, like we are working towards integration, but in the end we are seeing that there is a chapter open for North Macedonia. So those reforms that are done actually are not good reforms, because we don't have we haven't moved a step towards the integration. Like we are having these events, we are talking like this stuff, that we as the young people are the future, etc., everything about the EU integration, but still in the end, we as young people, like me personally, I would say, like, yes, I'm involved in civil society, but also my friends who are not involved, like they haven't touched about EU integration. We don't feel that we are something part of this process, that we are somehow contributing to this process. All these meetings that we have also with the EU official, also thank you, Madam Ambassador, because only the ambassadors are the only chance that we as young people can actually say something in front of about how do we feel, etc. But all of these meetings are only with the politicians who, to be honest, are actually, we don't see, I mean, I'm talking about as a young person, I'm not seeing that we are anything moving forward in this kind of terms. So also I believe that the EU officials, when they also come to North Macedonia, they don't need like only to talk about us, like the young people in the EU integration, but also to talk with us like directly. And so we can directly actually provoke a discussion, discuss, and see how we can contribute to this process. Because usually also the young people, when they are involved in this process by the government in the EU integration processes, are usually involved as a decor in the whole process. Like we are here, we can say like some nice words, and that's where it finishes. So my question, like this was more of a comment, and I would like to ask a question. How we can involve the young people, but more realistically in the integration process, because we see that maybe the politicians and the governments in our region are not maybe taking the real actions. There is also like the political way, but the young people now also like very apolitical currently. They don't want to be involved in the political parties because there are a lot of like scandals happening, etc. So they don't want to be part of any political, like they don't see maybe the future, because we are seeing a huge apathy among the young people. So my question is, can we switch the narrative that the EU can go directly to the young people, like to address all of this like integration process, the question, etc., to involve them like directly like this? Or is it only like the political way and the politicians are the only, let's say, channel that they can come through the country? Because like when we have this like talks, like when the EU politicians came, it's usually mostly like the high-level politicians talking with them, and the young people, we are only seeing that on the TV. So that is my comment and my question. So I mean, it can be forward to anyone. I just want to hear like your perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre. Okay. Yes, Madam Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Andre. I would like to answer with reference to the truck driver cousin example. I think you don't need to be an expert in EU integration in any political process to be politically relevant. That's a huge misunderstanding. Those who are experts, they drive technical developments. They're not decision makers. I understand that there's quite a strong consensus in the room that young people deserve more room for a stronger role in decision making, right? Yeah. How many of you ever wrote to a politician? 1, 2. That's good. How many of you ever thought of running for office? Any political office, can be a union also, whatever. And you did?
I'm the president of the union.
Great. So when I look, when I try to figure out where young people in Germany really made a difference, it's not these consultative processes that come to my mind. Of course, this is important. And of course, I would always speak out for that to happen and to happen even more. And it's great to hear the discussion, and I will take something back with me from that. But the real difference was brought about more recently in Germany by the Fridays for Future movement. It was pupils who decided not to attend school any longer, but to go out to the streets and to make their demands for a better climate action, and who criticized very loudly. And there are different means of political interaction, but I think the first thing you need to be aware of is what your concrete demand is. And yes, you can wish for better participation models, but that's not it's not a real topic, right? I mean, it's something artificial that only gives you the framework for your action to happen. I'm sometimes surprised. I saw a survey here from which I learned that there's very little trust in North Macedonia into political parties. But even in a regional comparison, there's very strong participation in political parties among young people. For me, that's a contradiction, because then I think, okay, what do you want from these political parties? If you don't trust, if you don't think that they can make any difference, why do you go there? So I think you're right in your deliberations, but I was surprised because you started saying you're not an expert, so maybe you can't really have an informed comment about it. Of course you can. You just need to be sure about what your demands are.
Yes, please.
If I may add on that, this brings me back to the expectation element that I mentioned in the beginning. EU negotiation process is a political process. EU integration is a political process as well. So at that level, we must be involved there. There are other elements that are needed to fulfill before that. For example, I think what we could do as a civil society, as a youth, as organizations that actually want to involve youth in this process, is to explain not how the EU works, how the EU Commission works and what do they expect from us, but how the local institutions work when it comes to negotiations, who is in charge and why. What is the role of the Ministry of Youth, which we do not have in any country in the region, by the way. So that's another topic to bring on the table. Why is the youth always secondary, or why is the youth thing always added to another ministry, Ministry of Culture, Sports, and so on. So in that sense, that's something where we can push for the youth inclusion, and once you reach that point, you are already at the political level. Then you can use different mechanisms to make your voice heard. For example, you mentioned digital consultations, if I'm not wrong. We have it in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have e-consultation system, which works partially, but youth are not using it that much. So if you have a law or legislation that is directly linked to the EU integration process that involves youth, where the youth voice must be heard, and if you receive 2 or 3 comments or proposals, only 2 or 3 among the field of thousands, then you might question if people are really interested. So we have some mechanisms on the ground. It is not enough, but we have it as some pre-step before we reach this political level that I mentioned. At the end, if we don't get involved in this process as EU consultation mechanism, the adoption of EU-related legislation will only be partial. And what do we have from that? Once we reach the screening, particularly in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because we haven't reached that point, we'll have to change this legislation once we start doing negotiations with the EU. So in that sense, we must get involved already, but also we should not forget that this is really a political process, and that's why I'm happy you raised the question about who is involved or who is running for the office or who has a need or a wish to run for the office. We have only a few hands, so it's also about us, and I'm also talking about myself. like I did not run for the office. I did not try to run for the office, and I question myself why. So that's also maybe the thing to think about ourselves. I think that that's something to, I don't know, to set up our priorities first before we actually start dealing with all these institutions that I mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Evan.
When you have 36,
Yes,
there's
Mr.
still
Theodore?
plenty of time to
Maybe.
run.
I want to add something different in the situation. So we are very much talking how we can get a chair in the high-level politics, in official debates. First of all, in European countries, that's much more easier, I think, because, for example, Commission and Parliament organize every month trips to the Assembly of the Parliament, and you can go and join also the conversation. So when I was working with the liaison office in Greece, we organized every month, and young people, and not also only young people interested in politics, but also influencers, civil society organizations. They travel to Brussels or Strasbourg in order to join the assembly and talk to the officials. For the Western Balkans, it's a bit different and it's a bit more difficult. But I want to just to say that the European integration is not a process that we should Westernized it. We should Balkanize it. So we should start, for us to be easier to, let's say, work on, to show them that we are ready for the integration, is to work on European values on the ground. And that's something that I gave some examples before, but for sure all of you have more examples on European values, project based on European values on the ground. So this is also, let's say, a voice in the table, because Ambassador very well mentioned before the Erasmus projects. All these are small actions, small voices of integration, of European values, of European perspective of young people. So I think that sometimes we should not much think only for the high politics and the officials and the Brussels and the Skopje and the Athens. We should start from the ground more, let's say, quietly for them, but more loudly for us, because it's a place that we can stand our voice.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gabriel?
About the question, my advice is don't let the institution alone for any moment, because we work with them a lot, and every week we send hundreds of emails, writing a lot of letters, make a lot of calls, and even like us for NGO, it's still difficult to communicate with them. What about one young activist that doesn't have any experience? I remember one situation from 2 months ago, from now, yes. I was on one conference with one boy from our youth section, because we have. On that conference, he met the Ministry of Education of Bulgaria, by any chance. He brought with himself a letter from his high school, because on that time we communicate about changes in the education law. He met the minister and he said, Mr. Minister, I have proposals for the changes about the new law. And we believe that only because of the camera, he said, yes, we're going to invite this boy in the National Assembly, we're going to discuss his proposal. And we were so surprised that he literally invited him in 2 weeks. And that 16 years boy was invited in the Ministry of Education about the commission, the proposal on the new changes in the law. And okay, some of the points they throw it out. But there are points that we're accepting, and they're now in the new education law. So my conclusion is, if you want, there is a way for sure.
Thank you.
Just before I go, I just want to add one more comment, and I will leave the stage. Why did I mention like my background in the beginning? Because usually what I see in North Macedonia, like when you go also to these events, etc., like events when we are talking about integration, etc., 97% of the people who are coming are from those fields. So, like I was talking to my colleagues at faculty, and they are actually they don't care. Like they're not interested in anything about that. Like they are constantly speaking about the benefits from the EU integration, etc. That they need them, etc. But they are not. They don't want to involve. So that is like for me, it's like pretty much concern. Even though I would like to mention, like from the technical side, like the EU legislation for construction design, like currently it's implementing in North Macedonia. Like the whole Balkans has transitioned already to European standards for design, and we are still living in a magical box that we are like for 10 years prolonging, because it's pretty much easier for the ones who are deciding on that in the Ministry of Transportation and Connections and in the Chamber of Engineers. Because the young generations are adopting the new standards, and but those institutions are also led by the older generation, and the young generation cannot say their voice. For example, this is only like a one generic example. Therefore, was my point that it's also important to involve all of the people and all of the level, because also you mentioned about the ground level, to go from the bottom-up approach, to go directly in municipalities, to talk with people. And also, that is also the role of pretty much of the media, the local media, who also should be reporting on the EU integration, especially when it comes to, let's say, there was Erasmus in Kruševo, there was this conference in Kruševo, and the EU media and the local media should also inform the people who are living there that these are also part of the integration process and how this country is integrated in the EU. Thank you very much for your answers. Now I'm giving the chair to someone else.
Thank you, Andre. Who would like to join next? Yes, Stanley? Here you go.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I am Stanley Sileo from Hamburg, Germany. And yes, as a social worker and therapist, I'm asking myself, when we are talking about the youth, how can we help them to get emotionally stronger? So I'm asking myself, what about the point about their mentally health? I think it's very, very much important so that they get emotionally stronger and stronger, so that they can be ready for the future. They can involved, they have energy, and they can help to build the future. This is my point. I think it's also important to look at that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone like to share something?
Yes. Okay. I will just comment quickly that mental health, I think now in the globe, is very much addressed, and also connects with the European values very much, because if we, as I said before, if we change the ground and we make a community of values, you are more, you give much more effort, much less effort in things that doesn't matter, and you are working more on your inner. And also, I think that generally the problem is that for EU, and not only, sometimes the mental health is addressed only when it comes with AI issues, technology, these things. But I think that we can work deeper on that, on how it affects our everyday life. So youth unemployment affects our mental health. Brain drain affects the mental health. All these issues that we have as a problem of all happened in the region, and of course the waiting room, connect with our everyday life on that point.
Thank you, Ms. Theodora. And
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. But I would like to mention that we should also think stronger to think about conception. Conception to help the youth. Otherwise, it will not work out, you know? This is really, for me, very, very much important. thing. So if you are not stronger with your emotion, you can't learn this education, not possible. So I think we should work very hard on that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stanley. Is there anyone else who would like to? Okay, yes. Ah.
So my name is Milan and I come from Poland. I made some notes with my thoughts, and if you don't mind me reading them, then I'm all for it. And I might represent Polish youth here on the conference, but we differ on our opinions when it comes to EU and youth participation. It's mostly action from youth from big cities that keep the EU, like pro-EU narrative alive. And if you want to have any influence on the political and social reality we live in, you have to have a lot of connections. Meeting new people is vital for taking action. And if I didn't move to Warsaw, I wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. And my voice wouldn't be heard. So I think that it's a huge problem with making youth from smaller towns and villages to acknowledge that they also can be a part of a bigger thing, that they can also implement their ideas. And for example, I have some ideas to share, for example, on reconciliation process in Europe, but I don't have any platform to implement them. And EU doesn't really do enough to promote itself in all of the regions equally. So when it comes to when a huge crisis, political or economical, comes, the EU values are one of the first things that becomes questioned. And as for Balkans, here we face a lot of political and economical challenges, and we have to address them and somehow build a sustainable and aware society. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Milan. I think you're raising a very relevant point. I myself, I grew up in a very small village in a border region in Germany. And I think that what you describe from Poland is true for indeed many countries in the European Union, and beyond that there is this polarization and a rift in between the bigger cities and the rural areas. And I think there are plenty of programs that are open to, or that are designed to address the issue of participation, but people have to be aware of them, and people have to find the courage to participate in them. For example, in my village, if you ask the 1,500 people who remain there if it's thinkable to represent Germany abroad, they would probably all have said, not for us, but it is. I mean, I became the ambassador of Germany in North Macedonia, and I come from that village. So I also see it as my task now to go back and to share that experience, that you can have an influence, also to encourage people to try. And at the same time, I think where we maybe need to do more is in our outreach. also to smaller towns and villages. And we have a tendency, all of us, to stay in the big cities and in the circles of like-minded now professional circles. So to go out, that requires an effort every day, which I fully agree. I think we all need to make that effort to engage and to overcome also the polarization that is taking hold of our societies.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
If I may add on this, one of the conclusions from the Youth Forum in Pristina a few weeks ago actually is directly linked to what you just mentioned, but the way how youth, at least from the working group I worked with, see migration has changed drastically, because migrations are not seen as one door opens, the other closes anymore, because we live in a different time compared to the time from the 70s and 80s, where our cousins or aunts and so on left basically for survival. Now we have a different dynamics in the region. Many youth do go back, they return, and they all leave again. So we have a very, very different dynamics on the ground when it comes to where young people want to live, including internal migrations. For example, that's the topic that has been quite neglected for a while. Like, we always talk about the fact that we go to the EU, but we do not talk enough about the effect of internal migrations across the region. But now, as I mentioned, one of the conclusions is directly related to this, and also one of the highlights was how to give opportunities for those who stay in rural communities. Another thing, if I may just jump to the wider spectrum of this topic, is related to inclusion of youth again. I might sound a bit blunt or maybe gray, but I think it is okay to accept that some youth really are not interested. I think that is something to think about as well. I think those who maybe have a bit more interests in those topics, we should explain the relevance of EU integration process in a very simple way. And in the context of the Western Balkans, these are at least 4 things. Firstly, it's visa regime. You see the benefits on the ground without you being interested or willing to be interested. Second is the thing that I mentioned with the border crossing thing. If we manage to overcome that issue, it will be much easier for those not interested to understand the relevance of the EU integration, the payment system as well that we highlighted, and also education. We see it on the ground because we have most of us had a chance to go abroad and bring the knowledge back. So for those who are not interested, youth in maybe some rural communities, even in urban communities, this is the way how to explain the relevance of EU integration for them. And if I may close with this, maybe you realize that I highlight negotiations instead of integration, because integration, that's an easy thing, that will come. I think once we overcome the negotiation phase. Negotiation is a two-way street. It's called negotiation for a reason. So it's not the EU giving us something for us to accept, including the topics that a colleague mentioned that is related to mental health. There is a chapter that actually, where we should push and we can advocate for exactly for this particular topic, if we get involved. So it's up to us if we actually are willing to get involved to actually deal with all these decision-making bodies to push that topic more than the previous generations.
Thank you, Mr. Ellen.
Yes, I just want to add that sometimes in small local communities are easier to do some things and to get a place on the table. But a lot of most of the time, young people there, as Alan says, are not interested in doing so. But you can take easier seat on a local council, youth local council, go and join the assembly of the local council itself, than try to go in the parliament and or try to go in the Brussels and take a seat. So sometimes from local initiatives, you can have more your voice open, and also sometimes the local politicians are more connected to the ground, so because they need the ground more than the high-level politicians, so sometimes are more open to listen. Of course, it depends on the place you are living. I'm also from a small place, from a village in Chalkidiki, and I think that my experience living in Chalkidiki, which is a place that all Balkan people are meeting, it was very crucial for my whole academic and personal life. So I think that we can see it all the way around. So young people from local areas, from small places, can bring their knowledges and they can bring their examples to the bigger cities. I think that's the most important. And also I want to add to what Alan said before about that we should explain somehow to people what European integration means in real life. I want to give an example. When I was again in the European Parliament liaison office, we are training schools in one of the programs that the European Parliament is doing. And my colleague, she works permanently in the Parliament, she said that, you know, I don't want to say about infrastructures, democracy, all this. You know that the air we are breathing depends on the European Union, and everyone was still watching here, but the laws on pollution and air is a European achievement. And we don't have to think so a lot big, let's say, on that. Everything that we are doing in our everyday life is an example of a EU process, EU integration. So yes, that's what I want to close with.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gabriel?
This reminds me on our old projects. Especially we wrote a programs and project to our Ministry of Work and Social Policy, and the European Commission, I believe, also had some program about that. If I need to speak from my experience, in Bulgaria, I don't know how, but somehow it's easier and cheaper to make a good project outside from Sofia, because we're based in Sofia, we make project in Sofia and outside from Sofia. And after that, when I check the lists, when I know how much effort I put in that project, I see the revenues and the expenses, and I see that the smallest project somewhere in a small town, let's say, from Bulgaria, was more profitable than one big, just an example, big conference in Sofia that we made.
Thank you very much.
So, yes. My advice, if you have an NGO that want to make that kind of project, is to make it somewhere outside from the capital, outside from the biggest cities, because it's gonna be more easier for you and it's gonna be more profitable.
But what about the impact? Can you make a comparison? In which events did you have more impact? Or it can't be measured?
Okay, if I need to be honest, in Sofia it has good impact, but the whole idea on that project is about our ministry is to develop the smallest city. So if we focus on the goal, I believe our goal was more completable in a small town, except of the capital of Bulgaria. I have a question actually. Do you have in your country or in Warsaw, I'm not sure, do you have something like organization that cover a lot of small organization under it? If you
yes, we have the National Youth Council. If you're talking about that.
What about Poland?
I don't know of any organization that covers the whole actually country. You have to get to know people to basically know that some organization even exists. So because you don't learn it in school, you don't learn it even when you study. You have to just meet the right person at the right time to get in action. So that's the problem actually. And also I would like to say that I don't agree on one aspect that you've said, and I mean, sorry, I don't remember. Yeah, and it's the case of youth that is not interested in taking part of any social and political like problems and stuff like that, because the problem with Poland is that its educational system focuses mainly on individualism. We don't really promote values that keep us together and that would like encourage dialogue, and also we don't learn empathy at school. We promote individualism, and how it affects the politics later is we can see now how far-right parties tend to dominate among youth in Poland, because they say very short phrases that youth people want to hear, like for example, we'll fix the economy, and youth people are, we have like a living cost crisis in Poland, so youth people want to hear these things, and they won't listen to a 1-hour lecture on democracy and EU values, because it doesn't interest them, and they don't have like a society identity. They think for themselves. They are very individualistic.
Thank you, Milan. Yes. Thank you very much. Yes.
May I just jump in for what was, if I understood well, what is my main takeaway is basically the acceptance of those who are not interested, but at the same time the explanation, the relevance of the EU, so they will not run to the radical political parties that explain in a very populist way the benefits of whatever this political party wants to achieve. So in that sense, we still keep this non-interested youth, but we explain the benefits of the EU integration process. So I'm not saying we should just let them go or leave. No, actually we keep them that way with us and help them understand the relevance of the EU integration process by explaining the direct benefits that we see on a daily basis.
Thank you, Mr. Alan. Who would like to join our hot seat next? Yes? Here you go. Welcome.
Hello to everyone. My name is Visar. I'm Young European Ambassador, and I'm coming from Kosovo. While I was doing my studies, I used to do some stand-up comedy, and everyone, when I say I'm from Kosovo, they all were looking like, oh, hot topic is coming now. So anyway, I studied pedagogy in intercultural education, and I'm a young activist since 2013. So I always was engaged in EU enlargement, but lately I've been thinking, during my studies, I had a topic, and we were talking about victimhood, collective victimhood, especially in the Balkans. So I'm thinking we are talking about EU integration and EU enlargement, but is European Union ready to deal with this collective victimhood while we are joining the European Union? So how is that going to be dealing European Union with the Balkan region while we're going to cause problems in dialogue, for example?
Well, I actually can't really answer you whether the European Union is ready, because it depends on many different political factors. it's there's no. I mean, you see, you're all watching the decision making within the European Union. You see how difficult it is at times to come to a joint conclusion, to speak with one voice. I don't think that if it comes to a topic of the complexity that you mentioned, I mean, collective victimhood, it's related to a lot of, it can take a lot of different shapes, right? And I can't answer whether the European Union as a whole is ready to deal with that. What I can say is that for the time being, there is a stronger openness. We like to speak of windows of opportunity. I would not want to quote that image, because it also creates different associations. But at this moment, there's readiness to engage in an enlargement debate. There's readiness to engage in concrete negotiations from a significantly big number of political actors within the EU and its member states. Of course, that can change, and that this is why we keep saying that there is an urgency if you really want to join the European Union. And to find out to what extent the political actors are ready to engage in complex issues requires to talk to many of them, also to reach out to the population in EU member states, for example. Because in many countries, in the end, it will be a referendum that decides about the acceptance of a new member in the club. So I think it's worth talking about these issues and to reach out to more people than the usual suspects who are sitting around the negotiation tables right now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alan?
In the context of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's one of the top priorities actually defined by the EU. It's priority number 5 that deals exactly with what you just mentioned. And just to highlight, without the EU pressure, we wouldn't have changed a single legislation related to this topic. So I think there is more willingness on the side of the EU than on local decision makers, but that's where the civil society comes to put pressure toward and advocate toward the decision makers. So there is some progress. It's actually one of the few priorities. We have 14 in Bosnia and Herzegovina, by the way. It's one of the few priorities where you have seen some progress, and it's thanks to the advocacy campaigns implemented by the civil society and the push by the European Union.
Thank you. Ms. Teodora?
Yes, I want just to add that the factor of official regional cooperation, for example, for many years, the North Macedonia was blocked by Greece, Bulgaria, and I don't know, for several years was very difficult. And nowadays we are more open. I think our politicians are also more open to cross-border talks. So I think is also a point to be addressed. Maybe the European, I heard my colleague before talked about how Bulgaria was in a point to be the bridge between Western Balkans and the European Union. Greece tried that a lot of years before, you know, and still sometimes try to. So I think that also this point, so the European Balkans cooperation with the Western Balkans, can also help the procedure a lot.
Super, thank you. Mr. Gabriel, would you like to add something?
On the question, yes, I believe that we are ready. A lot of years the Balkan was pregnant with a lot of countries that are going to be born soon, with a lot of bad relations between them. But after that, the European Union saw what's happened here and doesn't want to welcome this type of conflict inside the European Union. But now I believe that the regional cooperation and the good impact between the countries are on the highest level in the history, I believe, yes. So, yes, we are ready, and I believe it's time.
Thank you very much. Yes?
And it just, I have another comment for a different topic. We were talking about Erasmus projects, opportunities we have in also Western Balkans. I did my Erasmus in Crete. I loved it, in Irakio. But anytime we apply, me and my friends from the region, we applied in Erasmus projects. Sometimes it's limited for us from Western Balkans. I think that it's we facing lack of motivation later to apply in some. For example, if you want to apply to some internships in some projects like in Brussels, and it's a problem because there's quota, and it's like mainly for people from European Union, and only 2-3 can be accepted from Western Balkans. So is there any integration in these such areas so we can improve and make more quotas for us from Western Balkans?
Would anyone like to jump in?
I don't think that there is, so I don't know more on the topic. I know that your feeling is the same. We had a great project in my organization, which we bring together people from Southeastern and Eastern Europe and talked about their experience. The project was about the feeling of belonging in European family, and they spoke about getting the European identity, Greek or other identities, and what does it mean for real inside identity shifting. And they talked about exactly what you are talking about now, and also extend on education. Master programs are double price for people, for example, from Russia, from Eastern European countries, or travel documents, all these issues, I understand. I'm not sure that there's going to be a change for now, because it depends on the membership. So, yes, but I know that the people from Western Balkans should do more and try more than the people in European Balkans. But that's also a different view for the politician to show that go on with the European integration can change our whole life in general in basis. So it's also a part of the process, let's say.
Thank you very much.
I would like to add one aspect, because I think that I understand the discussion about quota. It will always be a difficult discussion. There's also one truth, that is that I think in Kosovo the interest to have international experience, to do internships abroad is just much higher than in many other countries within the European Union. So whatever the quota will be, I think the interest will exceed it. I can only mention a couple of other additional instruments that come with the fact that we are partners in this regional integration process. We do have specific offers that are created for this region only, which others don't have, and there are also national opportunities provided by countries. For Germany, for example, since you mentioned parliamentary experience, there's an international internship program run by our parliament. So yes, I think there are additional instruments. You will always have the discussion about fairness and equal distribution, because also the interest differs within different countries.
Thank you. Yes?
This brings me back to the relevance of gradual integration, where this topic could be pushed actually a bit more. I completely understand you, because I also spent many years trying to apply for different things, and including RICO project, because I wrote 10 projects before it got approved. So there's a time that is needed simply because we are not part of the European Union. So again, not a place to blame the EU. EU is trying to protect itself and also to give more opportunities for the youth in the European Union. So in that sense, I understand frustration. It was the same for me. But on the other hand, I'm quite sure that you are aware of European Solidarity Corps, Erasmus Plus, Creative Europe, Horizon Europe, where we need academia again, which I mentioned before. But I think this could change actually quite quickly if we manage to push more for the gradual integration. Then, in that case, we'll be able to see the benefits while avoiding all these bureaucratic administrative procedures and all these negotiation talks and political dramas. But in that sense, I think we as youth, I'll put myself in that category, I think that's why maybe we should push more for the gradual integration, particularly for this topic that is related to the chapter 26, where can we work together, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arlen. We have space for one more person, Ms. Virginia.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Virginie Kamsche. I am the founder from the organization in Bremen named Africa Netzwerk Bremen. So my focus is by BIPOC people. That's why I want to ask, please, what specific policy change are required within the proposed reset of the EU integration process for the Balkan region to ensure equitable and effective social, economic, and political integration of Black indigenous, as what we call BIPOC, migrants moving their status from a waiting room of prolonged precarity to an action room of full participation.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add a comment?
Well, I'm quite sure that you have an answer to that because the way you formulate the question suggests that you have a concrete proposal what is needed in policy change.
We are not a member state, so I'm not aware of this topic.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, we are not a member state, Bosnia and Herzegovina, so we are still not there to actually discuss this, what you just mentioned. Yeah, we are not even negotiating yet. So, yeah.
Ms. Virginia, would you like to add something, or?
I don't. So my question is if you have an idea what we can do together, what they can do. I don't have any solution, but maybe you have an idea.
Right now, I haven't, so that would have been your chance to give me an idea. If something comes to your mind later, you can tell me.
Maybe we can continue on the coffee break.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I have to. I think at 28, I have a panel here. Then maybe I will have not a solution, but an idea. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. My name is Harris. My background is software engineering. So some of you spoke about the need for the digitalization on our course and path to the UE integration. So I was interested in, from your perspective, what's the most important thing that all of our countries should digitalize if we could do it tomorrow?
It's easy way to answer. For sure, the parliamentary assembly. For me, it's very important to know. In Greece, it is more or less. In Greece, we have made a lot of implementation on digitalized in general in the state. We should know what exactly happens in parliament, what our politicians are voting, for sure, and also what the in every assembly, an expert is invited. Also this part, which a lot of times is not showing in the process. And also, for me, a really important issue is in Greece, we have, and I want to see that in a lot of Balkan countries to do so. I don't know what's the process in the other countries, but we have, before a law adopted in the parliament and before they discuss this law in the and decide if they approve or not, they published it for public consultation. So everyone, individuals and organizations, can go and add comments on that, which are visible from all of us. Sometimes are effective, sometimes not, but it depends on the politics of the state, which is not good in all Balkan states, not only Greece. But this way of process is more or less what EU is doing on herself. You can see everything and you can hear in your language and read in your language the comments in the European Parliament, what they are saying, what they say in the Central Assembly, what they say in the groups. The digitalization process in our parliaments, for me, is the most important because it can give voice in civil society through public consultation, but also creates a more aware civil society. Because if we know that, if we can, let's say, see exactly what happens inside, we can recommend issues from outside or, let's say, start quickly and not wait till we learned out what happens inside. So, yes, for me, this is the most important part.
Thank you.
I would say notification of diplomas. I mean, digitalization, a digital way of doing it. For example, I'm sure many of you actually try to apply for different universities in the EU, and then the whole process of notifying your diploma takes a lot of money and a lot of time. So I think that's maybe the most important when it comes to higher education, but also it's not only between the EU and the Western Balkans. At the regional level, I think RCC is doing quite a good job in actually trying to bring universities together in order to get degrees recognized. So maybe the next step should be digitalization of it, because that will actually allow you to do it from home and to find a university that is of your interest, and then to study before you spend thousands of euros notifying or trying to find a university or a faculty that actually will be able to recognize, will be willing to recognize your degree. Exactly. It's horrible.
Yes, it can solve because in Greece we have that. You can go in web and have your degree in both English and Greek. Some universities are not very adapted yet, but the big ones, let's say National Capodistran University, also my university, which is smaller, University of Macedonia, which I had the bachelor degree, are in, and you can take them in English too and not spend money on translation, because in Greece that's really hard, and money throw.
Yeah, and also we don't need to join the EU for this. This is something that we can do before we join the EU. So there are many steps that can make our lives much easier before we actually become full member states.
Thank you very much. And we have only one more. Yes, because you raised your hand earlier. Please join us. Welcome.
So hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from Germany, and I think I come from a really privileged position because I kind of grew up with European values. But I think at the moment we have this kind of radicalization around the world, and I think kind of the EU values are kind of decreasing, sadly. And you mentioned the Fridays for Future movement, and I wanted to ask if you have to have this public pressure and like this uprising to create, like, to like be heard by the EU, kind of? This is my question.
Well, I think a lot of decision making is based on some kind of pressure, wherever that comes from. I personally don't think that you need to have protests to come to political decisions, but there are always there's always a level of reaction to whatever pressure you feel involved in decision making. So if the overall support for a certain decision is low, then naturally politicians won't make that decision. And I think this is also one of the reasons why I found the questions that you were asking here in the program so relevant, because I see for the time being a rather negative discourse about the European Union / the possibility to join the European Union. And if this is the case, then of course it influences the decision-making process in politics. So the short answer is no, I don't think it necessarily requires protests. There is the responsibility for the decision lies with politicians, but there's always some kind of pressure involved, wherever it comes from.
Mr. Allen?
The culture of protest is unfortunately quite dead in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So that's why we need some sort of, I don't know, new energy into this because of two reasons. First one, politicians are always scared of what their neighbors will say about them and what the youth will say about them. There is a quite typical proof. In 2014 we had huge protests, and these were the last protests in Bosnia, big protests in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and they were quite scary from both sides, for citizens of the country, also for the politicians. But that was the last time we actually saw the action on the street. So protests can be quite a powerful tool. And I think they should be used as a form of pressure. Of course, there's a way how you do it. But for now, I think in generally, maybe in the Western Balkans, we should firstly realize and maybe accept the fact that the culture of protest is quite not there, except in a few cases. So that would be the first step for us. But it worked somehow before, but now we don't have it.
Thank you very much.
I don't know what to answer, because in Greece it's the protest type of movement is also almost ignored by politicians, which is very much strange because, for example, we have seen a great example is Serbian student protest about the train accident. We had something very same in Greece, and still they don't listen. And the protest is not working because the politicians are ignoring this type of, which is for me, does it mean for me it's different conversation. But maybe we should find a way to pressure them in another way to pressure them, because they are, I don't know, corrupted, or I don't know, they don't want to participate in this form of, let's say, democracy, which is difficult, but at the same time, I'm not sure which methods are these. So I'm still concerning on that.
Thank you. Mr. Gabriel?
Unfortunately, I need to agree with that sentence. I see the decreasement of the European values in the society, and most of it on the parliament, because in our parliament now we have one or two parties that are anti-EU or pro-Russians, and I see the increasement in the confidence in that party, and I believe that if one or two parties like that enter in the governments, let's say Russia doesn't need to invade us anymore because they're gonna have it from inside. For that, I'm totally agree to involve that country from the Balkans that they are not part from the European Union as soon as possible, because if we stop them, this decreasement of European value in the whole the Balkans is going to continue, and I believe that nobody's going to be happy after that.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Sarah, for your questions. We have come to the end of the panel, but we will continue the discussion during the next sessions, during the youth experience spaces. That will be right after the coffee break. So for now, we will have 45 minutes of coffee break, and then we will continue in the youth experience spaces. Please find the schedule, which participant is going in which space. On the QR code, you can scan it and find it uploaded. And before we say officially goodbye, I would like to say thank you very much to our distinguished guest speakers. I think that we can catch some very good highlights that we can continue to implement within our work, because here we have a group of very young people who are students but also activists and in the academia. I would just like to say that and agree that the young people are the ones who will not bring back but rebuild the culture of democratic processes, of living the EU values and implementing it within every sphere of our acting, and also bring back or focus on the regional cooperation, because I believe that those are the values that we should follow, but not only follow, build our own version of them and implement in every aspect of our life. So thank you everyone, and see you later. Thank you very much for everything. Yes. Did you?
Baby, this is what you came for. Lightning